post that you just saw has more than 700,000 likes and about 2 million views. It's thought to have support from fans of the South Korean music genre K-pop, who are also known for backing social justice causes. Well, Trump's campaign predicted 1 million people could be at the rally, and it's blamed protesters for the empty seats. Well, we can now speak to Rina Shah. She's a conservative commentator at Relax Strategies, a political consulting firm, and she joins us now on Skype from Reston in Virginia. Rina, great to speak to you again. I do want to get to that whole TikTok prank in a minute, but let's start with Trump. What were your impressions of him at the rally?
Well, the 90 minutes of rambling were certainly very confusing for those of us who were listening for perhaps a little bit more substance. And let's not forget, the coronavirus pandemic continues to ravage the United States. We have over 120,000 of my fellow Americans dead from this virus. And it seems that there's an absence of leadership across the board. So in essence, I was listening last night for something more than what I have typically heard at the president's rallies. Of course, let's make no mistake that the president yesterday continued on with his usual style of grievances and boasting. And in that 90 minutes, we just didn't hear more about unifying the country, really addressing the civil unrest that's encapsulated a lot of American cities in recent weeks. I think what this was something which we expected going in, something that would feed the president's ego, give him new life, allow him to attack his opponents, and to cast the Democrats as those who are going further and further to the left.
Well, in those 90 minutes, no comments, as you say, about George Floyd, no comments about Juneteenth, but a comment about slowing the rate of testing. How is that playing out in the US as the number of deaths and cases there rise?
Well, more than just the rally attendance or, addressing any of the racial tension or street protests that have happened, I think that was what was most disappointing, is that the president continued with illogical arguments, essentially saying that we should test less, therefore we will see that we have fewer cases across the U.S. And that is actually absolutely dangerous for anybody in a leadership position to really push that out there, to promulgate that argument that we should test less. I really think this was fully directed at his base of supporters who I do not want to vilify. I have never in these many years vilified Trump supporters, but this is a base of people that overwhelmingly reject science. They consider being told to wear masks as something that infringes upon their civil liberties. So that argument, that illogical argument, not rooted in any sort of sensible or leadership sort of talk or style, was rooted at and directed at his base.
Well, let me ask you more about his base, Rina. You're a strategist yourself. The decision to hold this rally in Oklahoma, which is very much a red state, how does that reflect his campaigning strategy going forward?
One thing I've seen over the years, and yes, I've made my career in Republican politics for a very long time, despite not supporting this president, who I have never found to be a Republican. I do believe him to be an anomaly in the books of American history. However, look, this party has fully embraced him. And what they've also embraced is a lack of strategy, one that says, let the president be who he is. And who he is somebody that is driven entirely by emotion, ego, a sense of wanting to be beloved. It's actually rather dictatorial in style. He wants to be the ultimate ruler. And what he doesn't grasp is that we have co-equal branches. He does not control our Congress or our Supreme Court, but he routinely acts in that way. So this rally really was not about any sort of grand strategy. We should make mention here, and really any Republican operative with a thinking brain should know that the president's climb to the 2020 re-election has become incredibly more steep than it was. He already had mediocre numbers prior to coronavirus, prior to these street protests and all this racial unrest. And now that's going to be even more tough. He is going to have to defy the odds again, like he did in 2016. And there is no guarantee that he is essentially immune to the political gravity forces.
Rina, let's talk about these empty seats then at this rally, this TikTok prank. I'm curious about two things. Firstly, how much of a difference do you think it actually made? And secondly, could it potentially backfire, giving the Trump campaign more fodder to criticize so-called radicals?
I don't think it's the latter. I think if they're going to criticize anything, they'll criticize the leadership of Oklahoma, for example. Maybe say something like, "Oh, it was local ordinances," or there were non-friendly forces that didn't want us here, and therefore they scared the crowd into not being as big as it should have been. Well, look, coronavirus. A sensible American says science is evolving. The Centers for Disease Control are still putting out different guidances than they were weeks ago, right? So sensible Americans are saying, perhaps it's not safe for me to go. I don't think that they'll get very far in continuing down the path of saying these radicals are just trying to deflate us. I think what the Trump campaign experienced last night was a dent by this prank by teenagers, because what they were boasting were these massive numbers, and that was embarrassing for them to coming far less than under that 20,000 capacity of what the rally could fill. And there was pretty much nobody at that overflow area that the president and the vice president had planned to go address later. I do think the prank was successful in saying, look, there are a lot of us that believe what this president is doing is wrong, and let's just maybe really kind of stick it to the man. And I think these American teenagers are loving using TikTok for that, using Facebook posts for that. That's great. But I don't think it particularly bombed the rally. I think the rally was already on its own going to bomb.
Rina Shah there, a conservative commentator speaking to us from Virginia. Always great to get your insights here on Al Jazeera, Rina. Thank you.
Thank you.